Hello and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host Owen, the channel that brings you your team every single day. The channel that is run by the fans for you, the fan. And if you need your daily fix, if you need to know everything that's going on with Glasgow Rangers, then hit that sub. If you ring the notification bell, you'll always get a reminder when there's new content online. If you can give the video a like, I would appreciate it. Well, there's a few things we need to discuss this morning. It's Sunday. Um, Sunday morning when I'm recording. Obviously, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending obviously on when you are picking up this video. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Cyril Dessers deal. We're going to talk a little bit about Michael Beale's interview that he gave to Rangers TV yesterday, and also we're going to reflect on the latest comments from James Bisgrove as regards Graham Souness and his possible return to the club. Well, let's obviously start with the manager, Michael Beale. Now, Michael Beale has been overseeing, I think, a huge rebuild this summer. And he was talking to Rangers TV in an interview as the players returned to Ockenhowie for the first start back after pre-season. It was interesting to hear Michael's thoughts and also, what he said about future signings and future players coming in, and it was definitely an interesting look into the manager's thoughts on the summer and on what the future holds for the club. Michael said that he was obviously very excited to be back. It was great to have the players back. They were all enthusiastic, they were all ready to go, and was really pleased with the way that they'd come back after the summer break. He also spoke about how the international players would be slightly later in returning because of the fact, obviously, that they'd had to play games after the season had finished. So obviously the likes of John Souttar, Ryan Jack, for example, from Scotland. And then obviously he mentioned Nicholas Raskin. He said he would be back after the German trip because of this. Obviously, Raskin had been away with Belgian under-21s at the under-21 championship. So it's going to be a couple more weeks before Nicholas Raskin returns to pre-season. He talked about how, after the first week of the summer, as he described it, things had got very busy indeed. And even though Michael was away on holiday with his family, we saw how he was still involved with negotiations, still involved with bringing players in, still getting involved with everything that was going on, and obviously showing the commitment he's got to the club and the commitment he has to rebuild this club. Michael also spoke about the fact that he felt that there were still 2 or 3 players to come in. Now that was interesting, the number that he put on that. So 2 or 3 more players still to come in, on top of the signings that have already been made. And there was some great footage, wasn't there, on Rangers TV and on YouTube of some of those new players arriving for training on Friday, like Dujon Sterling. I saw Jack Butland too. So great to see those guys. But it's interesting that Beale said 2 or 3 more. So it looks like we are kind of, what the manager's saying, coming to the end of the summer business at this point. Is it that the budget has finally run out, or is it that that whilst we obviously wanted a changeover of squad and a new squad, you can't just wholesalely change everything, because then you've got a whole situation where you've got to get the team back, team gelled, because it's a new team. Now, I think obviously there are players in this team that are what I would describe as untouchables, the likes of Tav, Goldson, Cantwell, Raskin, all who are guaranteed starters. John Souttar perhaps could even be included into that, Ridvan. But outside of those players, you've got a situation where you're going to have a lot of new players come the first game of the season away at Kilmarnock. Now, the thing, when Michael Beale talked about that 2 or 3 more players, it got me thinking, is that 2 or 3 more after Cyril Dessers, or is that 2 or 3 more including Cyril Dessers? If we take it as it doesn't include Cyril Dessers, that he's already considered a signing, and we'll talk a little bit about what the papers have been saying about Dessers this morning. Who are those 2 or 3 players going to be? And is it going to be just 2, or is it going to be 3? And who are the signings? Now, Jose Cifuentes looks highly likely, according to Fabrizio Romano and a number of other insiders. So that takes you down to, let's say 2 more signings. Danilo, we know, is an ongoing negotiation. Another one that is ongoing. So that brings it down to 1 more signing. Now, who is that 1 more signing? It looks a lot like it could be a central defender. There's been an awful lot of links Um, for two Rangers from the likes of Jonathan Panzo, Austin Trusty, Charlie Cresswell, all left-sided centre backs that maybe indicate that Ben Davis's days at Ibrox are starting to come to an end. So, are they the two or three more names, or are there different names? Are we missing someone at this point? Does this mean the Josh Madger deal is dead? Josh Madger was someone who, according to all the reports before the season ended last year, um, Josh Madger was certainly someone who Michael Beale seemed really sold on, really wanted to bring in, really was one for the future, one for this club to sign up. So does it now seem that the Madger deal is dead, that the Madger will not be coming because of obviously the complications over the whole Bordeaux situation with the appeal, the end to last season, and it's just a very difficult situation. If it is that Madger isn't coming, that we are going to have Dessers and maybe Danilo and Lammers and Roof, and we don't know about Antonio Cholak. I personally think that's very disappointing. I would love to have seen Josh Madger come. Josh Madger's a very talented boy. He's both footed. He's quick. He can play out wide. He knows where the goal is. He can finish he's in the box. He's a good finisher. Outside the box, he's a good finisher, and obviously only a very young player. So again, terrific sell-on value for someone who only seems to have improved in his career. Certainly someone who I personally would have preferred to have signed to both Dessers and Lammers. I would much rather have brought in Josh Madger, who for me seems to have a better prospect for the future, better development, and is for me a better all-round centre forward. So it's interesting, isn't it, that perhaps that is done and dusted, that it's not going to happen now, that Madger will be end up at some other club, and then obviously there'll be an opportunity there to sign him. Likelihood then he may even head back to England with perhaps some English Championship clubs, or even a few middle to lower English Premier League clubs interested in securing his services. But 2 to 3 was interesting. That number came up, wasn't it? And that Michael Beale has mentioned there's 2 or 3 more. So that can obviously take it up to sort of 8, 9 new signings coming into the club this summer, which would be a momentous change. And look, at the end of the day, look, I have doubts about certain players, but you've got to get behind them once they get that light blue shirt on. And obviously, we'd have to just trust Michael Beale that he knows what he's doing. Certainly the players he signed previously in Cantwell and Raskin. Are excellent signings, and hopefully the players that we bring in will be in the same caliber as them. But exciting times ahead, definitely for Rangers. Exciting times ahead, and it was good to see obviously the players returning to training. Very positive. So it seems. Todd Cantwell looking very cool, very chilled out, and listening to James Tavernier talking as well about exciting to work with the new players that have been brought in, and also hoping the weather would get better. One of the things he said whilst he was on that exercise bike, it was interesting to see the captain been interviewed as well on Rangers TV. So interesting times. But the biggest interesting thing for me, like I said, I took out of that interview yesterday, was the whole 2 or 3 more players in through the door. Very interesting indeed. And obviously when they will get done. Also, a lot of talk in the media this morning about players that Rangers will move out. There's a lot of talk that now it seems that the incomings seem to be coming to an end, and the hope that we can secure Cifuentes and Danilo next week. And that would obviously nearly finish off the business of the incoming players. Then thoughts would turn to those players who are outgoing. The 3 main names that have been mentioned repeatedly in the press this morning are Scott Wright, Rabbi Matondo is another one, and Glenn Kamara. Glenn Kamara, as we know, has got several English suitors, Southampton, Sheffield United, all reportedly interested in the Finnish international. Rabbi Matondo is one that seems to have come up recently that I think, again, not a Michael Beale signing. That's perhaps not the sort of player Beale wanted. Didn't really impress when he came on or when he did have game time at the end of last season. Michael Beale clearly doesn't see anything in him as a player and doesn't want him at the club. So, it's time to ship him out. And obviously Scott Wright, who nearly moved to Preston, but that move fell through, but is reported to have a number of Championship clubs, still interested in securing his services. So, it's an interesting time. And I think the next big interest will be after these arrivals is who leaves, who departs, who are we going to see out through the exit door, and how much money is going to come back into the club as the club looks to to restock its finances after an outlay over the summer on transfer fees and signing on fees and wages. It's certainly interesting times indeed at the club, and it will continue to be, I think, over the next couple of weeks and month or so as well. Now, more news on the Cyril Dessers deal. It appears that the next step that Rangers are moving on to is to make sure that everything is dotted I's and crossed T's, with Dessers apparently finishing negotiations over his contract. And obviously then he has the medical to pass. That apparently is hoping that will be done by the end of next week, so that Cyril Dessers can join up with the Rangers squad for pre-season. Some interesting reading in a couple of papers this morning with an interview with Pierre van Hooijdonk. Yes, I know he played for that lot across the city, but he's Dutch player, played similar team, has played at similar teams to Dessers, and has apparently watched Dessers from afar. Pierre van Hooijdonk said that in his opinion, Dessers was a very similar player to himself. Physical, goal thief, someone who knew where the net was, and Pierre van Hooijdonk spoke very, very positively about Cyril Dessers, and spoke how he thought that he would have success in Scotland. Certainly interesting to hear from Van Hooijdonk, a player who obviously played at teams like Feyenoord, the same as Dessers. Also, played in Scotland for that lot, but had successful times in Scotland. So it's interesting to see that he is certainly backing Dessers to have an impact in Scotland and make a name for himself for Rangers. And it's encouraging that someone like Van Hooijdonk is speaking out and backing Dessers, talking a bit about him and talking a bit about what he will bring to the club, and that pressing style, that in your face kind of play apparently is what Dessers brings. A very much a physical approach, a physical player, and that's a sort of player in Scotland that seems to do well. It is a physical league, it is a million-mile-an-hour league, and certainly the Old Firm game fits into that bracket. And certainly some of Dessers is going to have to do. And I certainly hope that once he comes in and he gets in with the squad, that he hits the ground running. Of course I do. Yes, I have had my criticisms of him, and I hope he succeeds. Of course I hope he succeeds. I hope any player that comes to Rangers succeeds. I wouldn't be a Rangers fan if I thought any different, would I? So, yeah, definitely nice to hear, though, that Pierre van Hooijdonk is backing him to succeed, despite the fact, obviously, that Van Hooijdonk played for that lot from across the city. Okay, also in the press this morning, James Bisgrave has spoken again about how he wishes to get Graham Souness involved in some sort of role at the club. No, not director of football or sporting director, but more an ambassadorial role. Obviously, Souness has left his commitment with Sky Television, and is obviously looking for a new challenge. Bisgrave again has mentioned the fact that he would love Souness to come back in to be involved with the club, and has sort of thrown an ambassadorial role out there. It remains to be seen, obviously, whether Graham will be interested in being an ambassador for the club. But certainly, Graham has always spoken exceptionally highly and backed Rangers. Back from those first days, as manager, when I started supporting and following the club, and the great success we had under Souness, and the Souness years were just phenomenal years. Personally speaking, I'd love to see him back at the club. I'd love to see him have some involvement with the club. I think he is, he's a Ranger through and through, and it would be great to see him back involved with Glasgow Rangers and spreading the royal blue word. And I think he is definitely a great ambassador for our club, and will be a great ambassador for our club 100%. So good news that he is going to be probably back involved with Glasgow Rangers. Obviously, this is going to be, again, another busy week for Rangers as we move through. We'll obviously be here on Glasgow Rangers Nation, be bringing you all the latest news, views, and updates as they happen. A phenomenal achievement, though, for Glasgow Rangers Nation. 350,000 views on the channel now in such a short time. Thank you for your absolutely phenomenal support. We will continue to bring you daily content. We continue to work hard to keep up to date with all the goings on at Rangers and bring you all that news. And as fans, we love to share that news. We love to hear from you in the comments below. If you want to get involved with the channel, you can also join for as little as 99p. Join button is down below this video or back on the channel homepage. Well, thank you so much for watching this video, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you as always. And I need you to do two things for me. Two things only. if nothing else. If you don't do anything else today, do these two things for me. Smash that like button, and remember, we are the people.